Imagine for a moment that you're training for a marathon. Now, you've never run more than a few miles at a time, but you're determined to cross that finish line. What if I told you that you didn't need to completely overhaul your life overnight to make this happen? Instead, you could focus on getting just 1% better each week. Just 1%. Sounds manageable, right? That's because it is. This is the power of incremental improvements, small, consistent changes that add up to something extraordinary over time. Let me share a quick story with you. It's about the British cycling team. For over a century, they were, well, mediocre. They hadn't won a Tour de France, and they weren't exactly setting the world on fire at the Olympics either. But then they brought in a new coach, Dave Brailsford, and he had a different approach. Instead of pushing for huge, dramatic improvements, he introduced what he called the aggregation of marginal gains. So what did that look like? Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, they focused on getting 1% better in various aspects of their training. They improved the grip on the tires, fine-tuned the athlete's nutrition, even optimized the pillows they slept on. Small, seemingly insignificant changes, right? But over time, these little tweaks compounded, and within 5 years, the British cycling team was dominating the sport. They won 5 Tour de France titles and a slew of Olympic medals. Now, let's bring this back to you. Many of us fall into the trap of all or nothing thinking when it comes to personal growth. We set these big, audacious goals. Maybe it's losing 30 pounds, starting a business, or writing that book we've always dreamed about. But when we don't see immediate progress, what happens? We get discouraged. We start to think, if I can't achieve massive success right away, then why bother at all? This mindset is toxic. It's self-defeating. But what if you shifted your focus? What if, instead of trying to make a massive leap, you focused on improving by just 1% each week? That's at just 1%. Over time, those small gains will compound and lead to massive transformation. Let's break this down from a few different angles. First, let's talk about the power of compounding. Think about how interest works in a savings account. If you put in a small amount of money and leave it there, it grows slowly at first. But as time goes on, the interest earns more interest, and eventually, your account balance starts to grow exponentially. The same principle applies to self-improvement. Improving by just 1% each week may not seem like much, but over a year, that's a 67% improvement. Now, imagine applying that to your skills, your habits, your relationships. What could that mean for your career, your health, or your happiness? Over 5 years, that could translate to a 10x improvement in any area of your life. That's the magic of compounding. Another way to look at this is through the lens of sustainability. We've all had those bursts of motivation, right? We decide to make a big change, start working out every day, cut out all the junk food, or dive into a new project with everything we've got. But what usually happens? We burn out. The change isn't sustainable because it's too drastic, too fast. Focusing on 1% improvement is different. It's manageable. It's sustainable. You're not trying to overhaul your entire life at once. You're making small, consistent changes that you can stick with. This approach prevents burnout and ensures that you're still making progress, even if it's slow and steady. And finally, consider the ripple effect of small changes. Improving one area of your life by 1% often leads to improvements in other areas. For example, if you decide to wake up just 10 minutes earlier each day, you might find that you have more time for a morning routine that energizes you for the rest of the day. That extra energy could lead to better focus at work, which could then lead to a promotion, more income, and greater overall happiness. One small change can set off a chain reaction that leads to significant improvements across your entire life. This is the beauty of focusing on getting just 1% better each week. So, how do you start applying this 1% rule to your life? Let me give you a few practical steps. First, identify a key area for improvement. Pick one area of your life where you'd like to see growth. It could be your health, your career, your relationships, or even your personal development. Focus on just one area to start. Next, break it down. Once you've chosen an area, break it down into smaller, actionable steps. For example, if you want to improve your fitness, Start by adding an extra 5 minutes to your workout each week. Or, if you're focusing on personal development, maybe you read just one more page of a book each day. Then track your progress. Keep a journal or use an app to track your weekly improvements. This will help you stay accountable and see how far you've come over time. Remember, the goal is to improve by just 1% each week. Don't aim for perfection, aim for progress. Celebrate those small wins. Take time to recognize and reward yourself every time you achieve that 1% improvement. This positive reinforcement will help you stay motivated and committed to your growth. And finally, be patient and persistent. Remember, this is a long-term strategy. You won't see dramatic changes overnight, but that's okay. Trust the process, be patient, and stay persistent. Over time, those small improvements will add up to something remarkable. So here's my challenge to you: pick one area of your life and commit to improving it by just 1% this week. It might seem small, but that's the point. Start small, stay consistent, and watch as your life begins to transform. Remember, it's not about making huge leaps, it's about taking small steps consistently. 1% each week. That's all it takes to achieve greatness. So what's your 1% this week?